Hi everyone, it's Ollie from Magic Hands Hobbies. It's been a while. I'm putting up a new post. I think it's been somewhere in the region of 6 months since I last posted. Unfortunately, life's just got in the way. I got married, which was great, to my beautiful wife Steph. That's been a hell of a celebration. We've had a few family tragedies along the way, nothing for you guys to worry about. And also, I've just been experimenting in general with the hobby and taking a bit of a relaxing time, but got heavily involved in Blood Bowl. Some of you already know, as you can see from the playlists, that I've been painting some Blood Bowl characters. But I've been getting involved in a league and concentrating on that for a while, just having some fun, painting up the teams. And I've also been fiddling about with 3D printing. Now, I don't have a big studio where I could easily set everything up, show you the printer and stuff like that. It's all in my garage. And yeah, it's not a very nice place to film, so I haven't bothered doing it. But I have been experimenting. The 3D printer is a resin printer that's on loan to me. The guy Mike, thanks very much Mike, he lent it to me whilst he is in the army and out of the UK for a few years. And I buy my own resin, and I've followed a few tutorials, and I've been printing two things. One is a HeroQuest board, and two is a Blood Bowl board, which was I got the files from Kraken 3D Studios, but I'll probably put up some kind of video regarding that. Not necessarily about the printing. I think everybody now knows how 3D printers work for the most part. We'll see what happens, but I'll definitely put up a painting video. I've already started painting a few tiles for it, and yeah, I'm really enjoying the process. But here I am. This video is going to be about a HeroQuest board that I started making by hand. It all started off very well, it was all good. Unfortunately, the board didn't actually end up being used. I've finished it with the exception of all the wall pieces, but the problem is I got overexcited too close to the end of it, and I made mistakes with cutting the board, I made mistakes with gluing it down, and I gave up pretty quick. It's a lessons learned thing, but we'll talk about that later in the video. In the meantime, let's crack on. So, as I mentioned, this is based on the new version of the Avalon Hill HeroQuest board. I've been making it out of 10mm thick flooring insulation for underfloor heating. And this is my initial proof of concept, working with the same floor pieces as wall pieces in terms of their thickness, 10mm thick. These are the boards, cut to size. I'm doing it in two halves. That's the full size HeroQuest board there. This is me grooving in lines to form the grid using a ruler and a pencil. Not a sharp pencil necessarily, but one that's got a reasonable point to it. There's two boards, two halves of the board, and this is me cutting out the pieces. Now, this was all fine, this all worked hunky-dory, everything looked great. The problem I had is when I came to trimming the pieces to allow the walls to fit in between. I was far too impatient with it. I didn't set up the Proxon in a way that was beneficial. So I decided to cut 5mm from two sides to allow a wall piece to slot in, which was 10mm wide. But it was the way in which I did that didn't quite make sense. What I'm showing here is my concept for painting. I came up with two different paint schemes, but the idea is that you're highlighting from above over a darker colour, so that from different angles it will look correct. In the end, I didn't choose any of these two. I went for something way more natural. It was quicker to produce. and these are the paints that I use to do so. There will be a part of the video, I think it might be in the next video, where I'll actually show how I put that together. This is me detailing one of the rooms. Just very quickly, I was trying to replicate the HeroQuest board as it is, so I was trying to be as accurate as I possibly could. You'll notice the squares are not all square. This again is because I've taken 5mm off in particular directions. So I've grooved the floor out to match one of the patterns on the floor, and then I'm going over with a tinfoil rolled up ball. Simple as that. Just, you know, there's no need to go into meticulous detail with this. Just try and keep it as random as possible. That's why I'm not lifting and pressing with the foil ball. Then I've got some sculpting tools. I've had these for years, never really properly used them, but this one with the ballpoint on is what I end up using to carve the cracks and additional details into the floor tiles. You simply run the tool over the top and try and keep the cracks random. It's not overly easy. Your mind is designed to create symmetry, and it's far easier to try and do something symmetrical. You also don't want to overdo it. You don't want to put cracks on every single square. It just doesn't make sense to do so. However, when you do take them across from one tile to another, one square to another, it does make sense to have them line up. Yeah, and you can see I put some curves in those cracks. That doesn't always work. You know, rock doesn't crack like that. It does wear in that particular way. You know, it will smooth off, you know, if exposed to the elements. But this is supposed to be a dungeon, so that's just not going to happen. This is another example of another board. This is a timber floor, so I've marked off the each square individually to have planks of the same sort of size. Again, you can see the pencil I've got has got a point to it, but it's not fully sharp. It's enough to put a small groove in there just to give the definition between the planks. And then what I'll do is I will take the pencil and just randomly put some lines on just to give the impression of wood grain. You could do this with a wire brush. I think that the wire brush wouldn't work in this particular instance. It would be too fine. It needs to be more evident because of the paint that I'm going to use later. So you can see here the grooves stand out quite well, and the grain looks really good. Try not to do it all in straight lines. Try and have some of the grain crisscrossing. As you can see, I've done some diagonal lines across them as well, without making it too obvious. Now normally I would use Mod Podge and black paint. In this particular case, I thought I'm just going to try it with black paint. Now the problem was it actually used up a lot more paint than I thought it was going to. I think basically because it wasn't sealing itself. It was okay, luckily, because the polystyrene, no, not the polystyrene, the board beneath is grey, almost black. You don't really see anything sticking through. So now I'm using the same painting technique for my wood as I have done in a previous video for painting HeroQuest furniture, starting off with the dark brown. And the idea is this is like a wet brush over the top, trying to catch all of the highest raised areas and paint a uniform colour across the top. And you see that I've, you know, for simplicity, I've done all of one in one direction, and then I've switched it around 90 degrees, and I've done all the other in the other direction. Going for the next colour up, and this is definitely more of a dry brush technique, but I'm trying to focus primarily towards the middle of each of the tiles, and this will become more and more apparent the higher up I go with the colours. So I definitely do not want to colour or cover everything that you've just done. It's the same standard dry brushing technique. You don't want to cover everything up that you've done before. Not just dry brushing, that applies to any painting. If you paint over what you've already done, it's made it irrelevant. But you see how leaving almost like a shadow around the outside, it gives it a pretty nice contrast and effect. So going for the next colour, and again this is more focused in towards the middle, in towards the centres. I really like this recipe for timber. It's certainly the best one I've ever done so far. Obviously it's not realistic. Trees aren't actually brown for the most part. They are mixtures of greys with some brown thrown in there. But we all associate brown as being wood. So this is why I've done it. So there's one of the wall pieces by the side which demonstrates how it's going to look. Standing some heroes on there that I painted previously, and adding the furniture. So it all looks pretty good. Everything works out nice. This was a little sewer drain that I did. I haven't got a video for that, but I may well do another one at some point just to show you guys what I did. I wasn't quite happy with this wall piece, so I thought I'm going to add something to it. So what would be better than to add a dead body, a skeleton, attached to it. I've got some chain, some modelling chain that I've used previously. I think it's actually meant for boats. It's scaled for little boats. There's the chain in the background. Good thing is I never really took good care of it, so it's actually gone rusty, but you won't really be able to pick that out, so I'll end up painting it anyway. So I haven't got any manacles. This is from an old Warhammer Fantasy, I think it was a Black Orcs box, and I just decided to cut the pole, drill a hole in it first, and then I'm going to slice effectively donuts off the end of it. Then all I need to do is cut off the hands of the skeleton and put this in place of its wrist and put the hand back on again. If you're ever cutting these bits, be careful, because if you slip or press down too hard, that donut piece is going to go flying and you will not find it. It's just sod's law. Now, I don't have any tweezers either. I could use my wife's, but I'm pretty sure she'd be annoyed with me using her stuff for this modelling. I really ought to invest in a pair, especially needle nose pliers. Sorry, not needle nose pliers, needle nose tweezers. So I thought the safest way was to put a blob of super glue on a flat surface rather than trying to super glue my fingers to any of the parts. Dip the chain in it and then just hold it over the plastic to form the manacles. I'm going to put a blob of super glue on the wall itself, and then same thing, just drop the chain into it and hold it there for a few minutes. Now I do have some super glue spray, and you spray it on there and it reacts. It's an accelerant for the glue, but if I use it on here, quite often it will what's the word? It will come up white and expand, and heat is generated during that process. And the last thing I want is any of my wall piece to melt. So I'm quite happy with this. Got the manacles. They will get painted in a minute, but I got to add the skeleton. So here's me painting them. Pretty simple. Just gonna add, I'm adding silver straight onto it. Very messy. Probably should have done this before and stuck it down. Gonna add some Agrax Earthshade. Now it's like, well, why aren't you adding black wash? Well, I'm adding brown wash because I want it to give more of a rusted kind of effect. My usual rusty metal recipe is to add black wash first, but in this particular case I was just experimenting. So add the brown wash first, no black wash, and then just add some Rise of Rust over the top of it just to give that rusted effect again. That looks pretty good, but definitely want to add the skeleton in there. So let's get the skeleton, one I made earlier. Well, obviously I didn't make it, but I definitely painted it earlier. just going to hack off all the bits that I don't want. This is a skeleton that has been in the dungeon, he's not going to have an axe to hand. The good thing is the resin that this is made out of can be manipulated. You dip it in some hot water, boiling hot water, careful of your hands people, and then holding it in the position you want, you then dip it into cold water, preferably ice water, and it will hold its shape in whichever position you're holding it. There we go. So we're going to hold it in the boiling hot water. You see I've got a spoon there. This is because it is boiling hot water. I do not want to put my fingers in it if I can avoid it. Just leave it in there for a few minutes. Give it a few hits with a spoon. See how supple it is. Seems to be okay. So I'm going to bend the legs. Sorry you can't see it. And I'm going to put it straight into the cold water. And you can see straight away that it's instantly holding its shape, which is great. Held the arms up as well. So there's the finished article. Looks pretty good. Doesn't take up too much of the square because the squares are oversized. Means you can play the game as well. Hope you enjoyed it. I know it was very short and sweet. Leave a comment, like, share it with your friends, and hopefully I will see you in the next video. Speak to you soon. Bye.